All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm really, really excited you could be here. My name is Anjali, and I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Flow team. I was one of the first people on the team. It was a really small group of us who started and built this product from the ground up. And I'm really excited to share what this product can do for you and what its capabilities are for your organization. So let's get started. So you're all aware of the photography and copyright guidance. And coming to our agenda. So we'll start with what is Microsoft Flow? What can it do for you, for your personal productivity and your tasks, and what it can do for your organization. How you can help your coworkers also work smarter. We'll talk about some out-of-box capabilities in Flow. We'll talk about automated approvals. We'll talk about buttons, where how you can start a flow with the push of a button. If the out-of-box capabilities aren't quite what you're looking for, what can you build? What are the custom things that you can build straight from Flow? And if you wanted to collaborate with your coworkers, if you wanted to help somebody in your organization also use Flow, how do you share it? Advanced capabilities, if you're an admin or a developer for your organization, we have a few things in here in this session for you as well. And finally, we'll talk about how do you get Flow, how do you start using it immediately. So if somebody had to venture a guess about what is the single solution today that does most system integrations? Anybody want to venture a guess? Email? Anything else? Active Directory. It was a surprise for you. It is human beings. It's you and I. We are the best system integrators out there today. You know, we've become so good. We've become so very good at managing multiple to-do lists. We have them on our pen and paper. We have them in the way of flagged emails in Outlook. We create them in Wunderlist. We know exactly how the priorities of each one stacks up. And we can like really look across these three systems and integrate them ourselves. We've become so good at understanding if our document proposal, if V5 was the latest version, or if it was V1.1.2, that final. You all know what I mean, right? And we've become really good at it, but is it really the best use of our time? Is it really what we should be focusing on? What if there was something that could automate all of these mundane tasks for us so that we could work on the real work, on the real critical items that, that we are interested in doing? So that is where the magic of Microsoft Flow comes in. Microsoft Flow, we'll read this together. Microsoft Flow helps non-developers work smarter by automating workflows across services. You don't have to write a single line of code in order to be able to use Microsoft Flow. What can you do with Microsoft Flow? You can get notifications. So I have a flow where if I get an email from my boss, I get a push notification on my phone. And this little flow helps me be so much more efficient with email. It helps me be so much more efficient. Now I know if my boss emails me or my boss's boss emails me, if they have action items for me, and if they have something that I need to be aware of. If nothing else, I want you to go deploy this flow for yourself and really, really enjoy this life hack. What else can Flow do? Flow can copy files. So I have a folder in my OneDrive for Business where I keep all the files that I need to share with my team. So as soon as I make updates to this, to a file in this folder, a Flow automatically copies these files and copies them to a SharePoint document library where my team reviews the documents that are coming in. Flow can also collect data. So imagine a scenario where we have a team of people, each of us who are interacting with a different set of customers. So a flow can be set up to capture emails from all of these customers and put them in a central place, like a OneNote or an Excel file. So if one of us is out of office on vacation or just has too much work to respond to a specific customer, other people on the team have a full history of the conversation with the customer and can get on top of it and help us out. And finally, like flows can automate approvals. Approvals is a first-class experience in Flow. You can get approvals for your documents, your expense reports, purchase orders. We have a really fun demo coming up on it. So what makes up a flow? A flow is essentially built up of a trigger and an action. A trigger can be, you can start a flow manually. You can start it via a push of a button. Or you can set it up on a schedule. So you can set a flow so that it runs on an hourly, daily, weekly basis. Or like in this example on the screen, it can trigger if there is a specific event on a cloud. So if there is a new record that was created in Dynamics, an action can subsequently happen when the trigger is fired. At least one action and multiple actions can happen when this happens. So in here, if a new record is created in Dynamics, the person who this record is assigned to can be notified by email saying with the details of the record and that something is waiting on this person. So how does Flow connect with all of these services that we are talking about, the Dynamics, email, to-do lists, and so on and so forth? So we have 170 out-of-box connectors that Flow can use today. These connectors are common across Flow and Power Apps. These connectors have the plethora of Microsoft services, such as those included in Office 365 and Dynamics 365, and also external services that are non-Microsoft. So we have Slack, Salesforce, MailChimp. All of these services are also available for you to integrate with Microsoft services and such. If you don't find a service that is in here, or if you have a line of business application that you use in your enterprise, as long as it has a REST endpoint, you can build a custom connector on top. And we'll talk a little bit about this later as well in the session. And to get you started, we have hundreds and hundreds of templates. These go from the common use cases to some fairly obscure use cases. Most of these have been created by PMs such as myself and folks like yourself, the users of Flow. So if you find that you can't find a template that satisfies what you're looking for, you can create a flow and submit that as well to be included in our template gallery. We also have collections of flows that are available for certain professions. So we have flows that are available for marketing, for HR, for classroom tasks. An example here is for classroom tasks, we have a collection of flows that are targeted at teachers, students, and administrative staff at schools. So an example here is for teachers. Teachers love these flows, really. So one of the examples here is if a student finishes a quiz in Forms, get an email notification or a push notification on my phone. If I get an email, as a teacher, if I get an email from a non-English speaking parent, then automatically a flow can be set up to automatically translate the content of the email and send a new email to me so that I don't have to go to a translation engine, copy paste the content of the email. Similarly, for students, if they want to track their classroom activities, such as grades and classes on a dashboard, they have the ability to do that as well. So today we have 4 verticals published, but over the upcoming weeks, you'll see verticals on personal productivity, field workers, like on-the-go workers, as well as a couple of others that will be lighting up in the upcoming weeks. So believe it or not, the use cases that we described today were fairly simple. You can get pretty complex with Flow if you'd like to. An example on the screen here is, what I can do is I can set up a flow that monitors Twitter. And I can specify certain keywords, like if I want tweets on Microsoft Flow on how they're actually doing, I want to do some analysis in that. I can set up a trigger for the tweets with Microsoft Flow collected, and I can then, the Flow can see if that person who tweeted that, if they have more than 100 users or not. If they have more than 100 users, I can follow them automatically because they're an influencer. We can also detect the sentiment of the tweet. If it is a positive sentiment, I can send a reply saying like, hey, thanks for using our service. If the sentiment is negative, I can send an automatic reply saying, what can I do for you? How do I help you? All of these tweets could be collected in an Excel spreadsheet or in a SQL database, and it can also be sent to approvals to our marketing manager to see which of those tweets should be retweeted from the professional account that we have for Microsoft Flow. And finally, these leads could be added to your CRM system of choice, Dynamics or Salesforce, or both, and kept in sync with the Flow as well. So we'll see some of these examples of some complex flows coming up as well. So all right, what we're going to do next is we're going to do a product walkthrough. A lot of talking, right? Let's see it in action. So switching to my demo screen here, this is the website for Microsoft Flow. So I'm logged in already with my Anjali C at Microsoft credentials over here. I can see a video, a short video about how it works. These are the verticals we talked about. If you scroll down, it talks about how you can create multi-step flows, approvals, etc. And we have some templates to get us started really quickly. So remember the life hack I was talking about how I could get a push notification if I receive an email from my boss? Here you go. There's a template for that. So if I click on this, it brings me to a template description page that gives me the title, and it gives me a visual indication of which services this flow connects to. So in this case, I connect to my Office 365 Outlook because this is where my email is getting monitored. I connect to my Office 365 users account because from this users account, it knows what my profile is and thus what my manager's email is automatically. So what this flow does is monitors my email, and if it sees an email from my manager, that's when it sends me a push notification on my phone via this notifications connector. So I'm already connected to all of these services. I hit create flow, and that's it. I am done. With one click, I was able to set this up. That's it, no more. And here I can go and look at the details of this flow and such. Now let's look at some other templates that we have on our flow page. So this is the template gallery page with multiple templates. And how many of you here use SharePoint? A lot of you, right? So on our team, we use SharePoint extensively as well. So if we have a SharePoint list and I want to send myself or my team an email via this SharePoint list, whenever a new item is added to this list, I can do this via a template as well. So here I come in, I see this clean visual design, which we internally call as the diet designer. And what I can do, I can just set up, I can select the SharePoint site address and the specific list in there. Let's say I want to monitor Contoso tweets and create a flow. And again, that's it. Very easily, very quickly, I was able to set it up. Now let's talk about a slightly more complex scenario. So Diego from AeroPoint stopped at our booth the other day, and he had a pretty relatable situation, actually. One of his clients is a makeup manufacturer, and they're often analyzing Twitter for what the latest trends in makeup are so that they can get ahead of the curve and start manufacturing those products for them. Similar, I thought it was so relatable because as the PM of this product, I often want to understand what folks are saying about Microsoft Flow as well. So we have a template that can actually help Diego get started with this very easily. So we have a sentiment analysis over here, and this template, it runs sentiment analysis on tweets and stores them in Power BI for me to be able to easily visualize them. So what happens here is I monitor Twitter, and then there is a text analytics connector. This text analytics connector is going to provide a score between 0 and 1 for negative tweets versus positive tweets, and store them in Power BI. Again, I'm connected to all of these services. I hit continue. And now I land into this full designer, which is more powerful than the diet designer that I just showed you. So let's say when a new tweet is posted, and you can provide your own company's name here. So I'll say Microsoft, and I will detect the sentiment. So what happens in this next step here is that the tweets that have Microsoft mentioned in them, those are the tweets that are handed to the text analytics in order to be able to detect the sentiment. Next, the actual score from this sentiment is going to be stored in Power BI. So here, what I've done is in Power BI, I have set up a streaming data set, and I'm going to this test sentiment, and I'm going to put it in there. So this queries Power BI, gets the values from there. Now, in the sentiment score, what I can do is very quickly, I can add values from the previous steps into this action. So here I'm going to say I want the score. I go back to the tweet. I'll include the tweet text in my data set. I want to specify the time. There is search in this dynamic content as well, so when the tweet was created. And finally, where the user is located. So I have this set up into my streaming data set, and I click Save Flow. So what this flow is going to do is, now that it's saved, it's going to start monitoring Twitter for tweets with keyword Microsoft. We're at Ignite. I'm guessing there are a lot of Microsoft tweets. And it already got something. And this is where the flow has started running already. So now let's go to Power BI. Here we are in Power BI. I go into my workspace and come into the data set. This is the test sentiment data set that we just put all these values in. And now we're going to create a very quick report. This is going to take us literally 20 seconds to do. And what we want is a line graph or a bar graph. We specify the location on the, we specify the location on the x-axis and the sentiment score on the y-axis. And we specify that we want the average of scores between 0 and 1. So here it gives you a sentiment per the user's browser location on how the tweets are really being analyzed. So we can see in Turkey, Istanbul, people are super happy, but in Arizona, people are not happy. So here's something that we set up very quickly. So that is that was just to give you an idea about how you can set up flows from these existing templates. So now, let's move on to what happens if you don't find something that's in a template. What if you wanted to truly build something from scratch? We have the ability to do that as well. So let's say I'll use a simple example for the slide, but what if I wanted to get an email every time something was added to a team Dropbox folder? So I simply just connect to my Dropbox service, specify the folder name in the trigger, much like what you saw in the visual designer here through templates, and then I can set up an action where I will authenticate to my Office 365 email, specify the subject body, use the dynamic parameters to populate the content of the email, and there we go. So let's look at it at a demo on how we can build a flow from scratch. So remember when I told you about how approvals is a first-class experience? What we are going to do is build an approval flow. On our team, when somebody wants to go for a conference, this was the process before flow. Okay, so I would email my manager and tell him like, hey, I want to go for this conference. And then he would email me back and say, how much does it cost? I'd go figure out what my costs are going to be, send him another email. Then he'd sit on it for 2 days because he's busy doing other stuff. And then remember what a great system integrator I was as a human being? I would go remind him via email, in person. And by this time, the flight prices are up, the hotel prices are up. You get the idea. We've all been there. So now, with Flow, we have a more automated process via approvals. What we have is a SharePoint list where we specify all of the conferences that we want to go to. So we can specify in here what the details of the conference are, what our estimated spend is, and then the approver is going to provide their comments. So let's build an approval flow on top of this SharePoint list. I'm going to go to my flows and create from blank. Here it gives me a list of popular triggers that I can get started with once this loads. Or I can just go and say, like, no, I truly want to create this flow from blank. So I'll add a trigger. And in here, it looks like the Wi-Fi slowed down all of a sudden. Y'all are not connected to it, are you? No, no, this is the demo Wi-Fi. It should resolve in a second. So in the SharePoint, when a new item is created, I will monitor my team site and the specific list. The list that I just showed you was the conference request list. And now I'm going to add an action. And with the approvals connector, which is a first-class connector in Flow, I can simply go to approvals and start an approval. In this approval, I have a drop-down that tells me whether anyone from this list should approve or everyone from this list should approve, all or not, all or, and or. So in this title, I'll say new request, waiting for you. And I'm going to specify the title of the request. And this is a field from the SharePoint site, from the SharePoint list. And I'm going to assign it to John. John is our community manager on our team, and he monitors all of these conference requests. So this is getting populated from the tenant. All of the email addresses are being populated here. Here I can add a link to the specific SharePoint item, so John can go and review the details, or I could include it in here via parameters as well. So now I'm going to add a condition. Now, if John approves this, so if his response is approved, then we can do a specific action. If his response is not approved, then we do another action. So here's how you add conditional logic in flows. So if it is yes, what I want to do is I want to go and update that SharePoint item to say that, yes, your request has been approved. So I'll update the item on the same SharePoint site. The same list name, conference request. And what I do here, for the unique identifier of the item to be updated, I pass in the ID from the trigger so that the same list item gets updated over here. So over here in the approver comments, I'm going to say these are John's comments that are going to flow through, and I'll set the approval status to yes. I can also add another action so that the person who is requesting for this conference will get notified of what John's approval status was and what his comments were. So I'm going to send an email, and I'm going to send the email. I'm sorry this is slow because I believe it's some network lag here, but I'm going to go to the created by email, the person who actually created the list item with the subject, your request was, and I'm going to search for the response, was approved. And in the email body, I'm going to say, yay, you can go. And similarly, if the response was rejected, I can again update the SharePoint list item to say that no, the approval status is no, and send them an email saying nay. So I'll go ahead and create this flow. And I could have specified the title here as well. If not, it's going to automatically assign a title for me. So my approval flow is done. And now we're going to go back to the SharePoint list. So what I'll do is I'll create a new item in this SharePoint list, like, hey, I want to go to the Ignite conference. And my estimated spend, I expect to spend about $2,000. The conference details, I want to present a session on Intro to Flow. And what happens here is when I click Save, the flow is monitoring this specific SharePoint list for new items. As soon as a new item is added in this SharePoint list, John gets an approval request. He gets this approval request two ways. He gets it on his Flow mobile app, so the experience is completely integrated in the app, or he gets an email with an approve and reject options. So we're going to show you that. I'm going to project John's phone. Here we go. I'm going to click Save. The flow picks it up and sends an approval notification to John's phone. Anytime now. There we go. So that's the flow notification. John?
So you see I got that approval request.
Is your mic on?
Mic should be on.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you saw I got that approval request in the push notification. I went ahead and clicked on it. It goes ahead and brings me right into the Flow mobile app where it has a full approval experience. You can see my approval at the top of the screen there. I'm going to go ahead and click Approve. I'm going to add a comment for Anjali and say, go kill it, and confirm. You can see the request has been approved, and then Anjali should receive an email letting her know that was approved.
Thank you, John. Thank you for letting me go to the Ignite conference. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So that's it. You know, John approved it, and I should receive an email as well to see saying that, yes, John approved your request. And I heard a ting. So there we go, from Power Apps and Flow, that I got a yay from John. So very good. That was our, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So you've heard a lot from me about how awesome Flow is. I'm really excited to invite Ian from Standard Bank onto the stage with me to share a customer story with you. How many of you like doing taxes? Trick question, trick question. Right, no, it turns out the bank guys don't like doing taxes very much either. So Ian's going to share a story. Thanks, Ian.
Good morning, everyone. Perhaps just at the outset, I form part of a team within Standard Bank, and our primary focus is largely around how we help our clients, our staff, in leveraging the Microsoft 365 suite. That's what we do. We live, eat, and breathe that. And we've been finding a lot of use cases popping up in terms of how to automate the environments in which they operate on a day-to-day basis. Prior to today, we were looking at certain use cases, which of these perhaps could be applicable, specifically using Flow. And as Anjali and the team will show you, Flow can do some really complex things. But what I'm going to cover today, a little bit of a business context set, and specifically around how a simple flow can have a real positive impact on a business. So perhaps just at the outset, let me tell you a little around Standard Bank. And let me just roll forward. Here it is. So Standard Bank, we're focused on Africa. We have presence in about 20-odd countries. We're north of about 50,000 employees, and we look after about 15 million clients. Those could be personal or corporate clients. And I suppose with many of you, as you deal with within your organizations, many of you will be in a multinational, which means that your business transactions will typically cross a border. It could be intercompany, It could be buying and selling goods with your clients, or buying it from a supplier or a vendor such as Microsoft. Now, as Anjali was saying, everyone enjoys taxes, and she was also indicating the sort of key thing here within the US. There's 2 milestones every year. The one is Thanksgiving, and everyone gets really excited for that. And the other one is when you pay your taxes at the end of the year. Now, you can imagine, and you get certain circumstances where you could end up paying your taxes twice. Now, there's a concept called withholding tax, and it's applicable not just to the bank, but to any multinational. Now, specifically, governments or tax authorities put in place agreements that says we're not going to tax the same transaction twice from both sides. And withholding tax is really a vehicle in which it allows a mechanism to avoid that occurring. And I'm going to give you some examples as to what this actually means in a practical context. So in this example I've got here, you would typically, in any business relationship, have an interaction between a supplier and a buyer of those goods, the purchaser. And typically, you would get an invoice that would be issued and attached to that. Now, the tax now in the concept of withholding tax is actually deducted by the purchaser, and they remit it, or they actually pass that tax that they've claimed back to the relevant tax authority. And in return, they essentially get a credit note or a withholding tax certificate. That gets shifted back to the supplier, and at their annual true-up, at their annual tax process, they're able to kind of claim relief from that relevant tax authority, saying, look, this has already been processed, let me not get charged again, and therefore it can be quite a tedious one, and people do it quite frequently in order to keep pace with it. And specifically when you're a high volume business like a bank, there'll be many hundreds, in fact thousands of these sorts of transactions that occur. So how does it operate at the moment within Standard Bank? It kind of feels that it's kind of simple, and it is a fairly simple view of what can be a complex process. But if I have a look at it, as it operates right now, highly manual. We found situations where people were putting it into the postal service, a certificate, the ones with the stamps, remember those? And I don't know what it's like in the US, but our postal service across Africa can take many weeks, in fact many months to actually get there. We had situations where people were putting on mail and sending it to different receivers. And I don't know what you like, unless you're starting to use the flows to automate your work life. But people leave stuff in the inbox as a trigger. Sometimes they forget about it. Sometimes they say, well, I'll look at it at the year end when I have to do my tax submissions for that particular country. And more often than not, people will forget stuff. And that's the core thing to this withholding tax process that we've dealt with this particular financial part of our organization. And as a result of that, we've found that there's an opportunity to kind of help them to automate this and move away from this manual process. And we've seen some situations where these big lever arch files with lots of these documents put into boxes, go to the receiver, give them over, and that reconciliation process takes a long time. But the key here is if you don't do it well, and trust me, governments and tax authorities do this well. This is how they get their money. So if you're not ahead of them in terms of how well you can claim for the relief in terms of withholding tax, you're actually giving them money. In fact, you're giving two governments two sets of the same money. So it's a key thing for us to kind of get right. So as I indicated, it was highly manual, the process. We lost many of these certificates, and that's what we call tax leakage. So you end up not being able to claim, and you should have been in a position to do that. So using the team, in fact, this was an interesting one. The individual involved was a tax practitioner in the business and fired off a mail to us. We hadn't met him before, and he hadn't been part of some of the immersions on the 365 platform that we're taking many of our business partners through. But he was asking some really probing questions on flow, and we were like, this is interesting. We often don't hear that from someone in tax. So we thought that was kind of cool. We set up some time and went through a process, and it was more than just flow that he was looking for. So we activated, as we typically do, using SharePoint, Power Apps, Flow, and Power BI, a process that took us a couple of weeks to kind of go through it and see how we can automate this process to help this cross-border transaction. So if I give you some examples and some screenshots, we've got this sort of very simple capture form, some business logic behind it. It says, I'm in this country, therefore you've got these cost centers attached, certain categories. As say, it could be an intercompany transfer between different divisions. It could be stuff that's related to a purchase, such as I'm buying Microsoft 365 for a certain country. And then on the back of that, the physical withholding tax or the electronic withholding tax certificate would be put into a mail. That mail would be getting triggered off. Flow is monitoring it. It then injects that into the SharePoint database that we've created. And on the back of that, we also use Flow to help us with the approval process, similar to what Anjali was just talking to here. We're also toying with some other ideas around putting some flows where we can inject it into a planner task. So if there's certain follow-ups we can do, fairly simple, fairly automated. The cool thing with this is after this iteration that we've got, the business unit, the finance guys will be building and extending it. And the cool thing about it is they've actually inventoried a whole host of new opportunities in which they can automate their world on a day-to-day basis. So why do I like this? Well, a couple of things. It costs us roughly about $30,000 in effort. That's our time and the tax practitioner's time. And the forecasted return for the first year is about $8 million. Now, if I give it a rough estimate, that's significantly more than what I'm paying in subscription fees for the whole 365 suite, for all the 50,000 people that I've got. So it really makes my job easier when I go to the CFO at the end of the year to say, look, I need a renewal in terms of the 365 thing. It's paid this on one use case. And we've got dozens that we're using in this regard. And yes, Anjali, it doesn't mean that you can increase the subscription fees, but it's a really, really good one that we're quite proud of. And the speed in which we did this thing for us was something that was very exciting. So explore it and find those use cases where the business themselves can be automated. Okay.
Thank you for sharing that story, and I really, really appreciate it. It's pretty compelling, $8 million return over a year, pretty powerful. So now that you know how to create a couple of flows for yourself and for your team, what more can you do? How do you take it to the next level? So you can manage your flow, you can see all of its run history, see where it failed, where it succeeded, whether it's still running. You can clone it so that you have a flow, you can clone it and start tinkering on the copy of the flow, and you can turn the flow on and off. You can also view analytics for your flow, how many runs it's had, what are the trends on the run, and this is powered through Power BI dashboards. We're going to continue to invest in this area as well. You can collaborate with your coworkers. So if I built a flow and I need some extra brain cycles and taking it to the next level, I can add John to it. And both John and I can use this flow. We'll use the existing connections that are embedded into this flow, and we can start working on it together and co-author on it. What you can also do is you can create buttons and share them. What are buttons? Buttons are, in a sense, a button that's available for you to push to start a flow. So some of the examples on the screen are what our team uses it for is if I see an issue with the Flow mobile app or the website on my phone, I can easily see who's on call via a push of a button and see who are the engineers that I need to get in touch with in order to see what's going on. I can also open a bug straight from this Flow mobile app via the push of a button. It's connected to Visual Studio, where I can specify the bug title and description, and it'll automatically get filed as a P2 bug for the engineers to take a look at. This is available via physical buttons as well. We have an integration with Flick and BTTN, and of course the virtual buttons that you see on the screen. Now, for your coworkers who you think are never going to build flows for themselves, they can enjoy these automated processes as well. You can share these buttons with them. So, our engineering manager shared the Who's on Call button with me, and he shared it with the entire team for us all to enjoy without writing that flow. And it just becomes super easy to share across your organization. So, Sulava is a Finnish ID provider, and unfortunately they couldn't be here at Ignite, but I wanted to give you a 1-minute customer story of how Sulava has used buttons in order to get more productive. So this is a picture of their office, and if you take a look at it, it's like, does anybody work here? It's empty. What's going on? Actually, these guys are always on the go, meeting with their customers in various locations. And the problem that they were facing in their company was that they weren't feeling very connected to each other. So they leveraged Flow buttons where they could check in with their location And a flow would deliver this information to Power BI, and on a dashboard, they could see, on a map, they could see exactly where the different users or different employees in the company were. So if 2 employees were in one location, they could connect over lunch or coffee. One of the use cases there was like a CEO couldn't make it to a customer meeting, but he found out that one of his employees was in that location, and he could get the employee and the customer connected with each other. So this was one quick story that I wanted to share with you. Also, what if I'm an admin or a developer? What is available to me as an admin or a developer? So if you are an admin of your organization, we actually have the admin center available for you. In this admin center, you can create environments, you can manage these environments, you can see what flows are running in your organization, you can see what sort of runs they are accruing in the organization, because the runs are accrued at the tenant level. So if there's a rogue flow that's accumulating too many runs, you can turn it off. You can add yourself as a co-author on any flow. So if a user leaves an organization, you can ensure that the flow continues to run so your business processes continue to work. You can also set up data loss prevention policies. So if you want to make sure that certain sensitive data in a specific service does not leave the organization via a service that you don't trust, you can set up data loss prevention policies to ensure that those 2 services can never talk to each other in a flow. So what else can you do? If you are a developer, you can build a connector. We talked about like if you have a line of business application that you use in your company, if you want to build a connector on top of it, you could. If you have a REST endpoint, you can build a connector on top of it, and that custom connector is going to be available only within your tenant's boundaries. We have a session coming up on how you can build custom connectors. There's a step-by-step wizard via which you can do it pretty easily, and that's coming on later this afternoon. I'll share the exact details towards the end of the session. And if you have a service that you want to be included in the Flow and Power Apps ecosystem and you don't see it here, you can work with our team. You can build a connector and then submit it to us for review, and we'll make sure that it's included with the 170 plus connectors on our website. So now, the Flow is great for simple as well as some fairly advanced system integrations. But at some point, it is possible that there are certain use cases where you need engineering help. You just need engineering help to move forward with it. So what you can do is any flow can be exported into a JSON file and can be handed to a developer in your IT department so that they can import it into Azure Logic Apps to start building custom code around it and taking it to the next level. There's absolutely a way to do this. So under the hood, Flow is actually built on top of Azure Logic Apps. And that's why you see very similarities in the visual designer on how you set up a flow. So it's pretty easy to just export it and hand it to a developer who can start working on it. So with that, I wanted to introduce you all to Joe from BusyBot. Joe and his team at Busy have leveraged the power of Flow in order to power their bot that can talk to Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, and Adobe Sign. Here's a demo that Joe will share with you.
Thanks, Anjali. Good morning. So Busy is a bot and team. Oh, let's switch over to 7. Okay. Busy is a bot and Teams. You can engage Busy, like you see here, in a channel or in a team using the @busy handle, or like we're going to do in this demo, we're going to engage him in one-on-one chat. So Busy is trained using Flow, like Anjali said. We created a flow, or what we call a skill for Busy, that takes in the keyword create NDA. So I'm just going to go ahead and type create NDA. When I do that, that is actually a trigger, like she showed, where create NDA starts a flow. Now Busy's gonna respond back to me and start collecting some information about this NDA. So who is it gonna be sent to? To make it easy, I'm gonna send it to myself. And this is a back and forth conversation with the bot. Again, it's just going through the flow. Email address. And then Busy's gonna come back and basically give me a courtesy reply to let me know that he's doing something. So if we look at the flow, I'm not going to go back into the back end, but you can see in the connections that we have the Office users connection, so it can get some information about me to be able to include that in the NDA. The Busy connector, which is the trigger, and also the conversational piece that allows the bot to converse with the user. The SharePoint connector, to use as we're using manage content type to dynamically create the NDA document. And then the Adobe Sign connector to actually be able to send the document out and execute for signature. So you saw in that toast that Busy came back and said it's all set and the NDA is going to be sent to Joe Harris. So let me check my email. There it is. And we'll go ahead and execute this through Adobe Sign. You can see here that it did include, well, it's the same name in both places, but one came from the user connector getting my information from Microsoft Graph. The other one came from the BusyBot where I told it who I wanted to send the NDA to. So I'm going to go down and sign it. And then the final step in this is in the flow, we're just doing a check for status, and then when that NDA is complete, he comes back and says, it's completed, it's going to be in your inbox, and it gets emailed to me. This is kind of a simple end to this skill. You could upload it to Dynamics, to Salesforce, back to SharePoint. You could do a number of things, and because it's built in Flow, all of the bot skills are built in Flow, all of the tooling that Anjali showed, including the analytics, the debugging, and all that stuff, is all built in. We are going to be dissecting this at the Adobe booth at 2 o'clock today. So if anybody wants to dive deep into how these bots are built using Flow, we'll be there doing that. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Very cool how Busy used Flow to connect Microsoft services with Adobe services and get it all very seamlessly together. So what we're going to talk about next is how to get Flow. You're sold, right? This is awesome, isn't it? So you can start, thank you. So you can start right away with the free plan. You can use your personal email address or your corporate account, and you can sign up right away on flow.microsoft.com and get it for free to try it out. You can also, if you have an Office 365 or a Dynamics 365 license, you can start using it immediately. It's already included in most of your licenses. Now, if you wanted to take it a step further and you're accruing a lot of runs in your organization, then you can always upgrade to the paid plans, the P1 and P2 paid plans. So, what happened in the last 6 months? We're a small team, but very agile, very quick moving. These are all the things that we've shipped just in the last 6 months. Some of the things that I'd like to highlight from here are some of the modern approval services, the demo that I showed you for creating from scratch. There are a bunch of things in the admin center that we have done in the last 6 months. The SharePoint document library integration, and we keep adding connectors continuously week over week. Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff that we have done. And what's coming up next in our highlights, we have the usage analytics, which I gave you a sneak peek of in our slides. As you can see, like, we're deeply committed to the SharePoint integration, so we are going to continue to make strides over there. We have a session dedicated just for how SharePoint and Flow work together, how they compare and contrast as well. We also have an integration with OneDrive that was in the previous slide that I didn't cover. And we have stuff coming up with Azure Functions integration, a rich HTML text editor so that your emails look, on point. They look really great. Your automated emails through Flow look really great. So that's what's coming. And we have more sessions on Flow. So if you want to take this was a 200 level session, and this is what we covered. But if you're interested in knowing more, there is a 400 level sessions where you can hear how complex the flows are that you can build. So that is coming up by Steven later today, at 12:30 this afternoon. If you are an administrator in your organization and you want to learn some of the admin capabilities, we have a session coming up by James. And finally, if you wanted to build your custom connector, that session is coming up later this afternoon as well, presented by Sine and Teresa. So today could be your Flow day if you wanted it to be. It really could. You could become an expert on Flow just in today. And on Friday, Mirvan is going to present a session on how Flow compares with the SharePoint Workflow Designer, what the plans are and such in there. So some of these helpful links, we have a Flow blog. We also have a template, a Flow that's available for you to automatically get updates from our Flow blog. We have a very busy team. We updated quite a bit. Some guided learning sessions that John and our team has presented. We have a very active community. We're always looking for influencers in our community. So if you're interested in signing up, please talk to us. We're right here, and you can always go to the community to see what's going on. We have an ideas forum. So, a lot of teams say that, hey, submit an idea, but we actually, I honestly tell you, we actually go and look at these ideas very carefully. That is what determines the priority of what we are doing. If you go see some idea that you like, you can upvote it, and that will come to the top of our stack in terms of prioritizing and getting it delivered to our customers. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter. And evaluate the session, super important. We're done way before our time. I'm going to give you at least 20 minutes back. But before that, who has the first question? Yes.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
That was a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Really exciting stuff.
Thanks.
Some really exciting stuff. A really quick question. One of the needs that my organization has surrounds security. So when somebody creates an item in a SharePoint list or in a document library, I want that item to be secured just to that user who created the item. But I want the library to be open to anybody to be able to create items. Does Flow help you manage security in that way, or is that coming?
So, our philosophy is that we use users' connections. So whatever a user can do manually, that is exactly what Flow is going to do in an automated process. We're not going to do anything outside of that because we work with the user's credentials. So if your concern is that Flow will create some rogue documents in there, that's not going to happen. As long as the user's credentials, they have given the permissions to go create certain content, that is exactly what is going to get created. Does that alleviate your concern?
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Hi. Hello. I can see that.
I can repeat the question.
Okay, I can see that this is used for internal users or users within the AD. Are there plans to extend it to external users, like B2C scenario?
So the question was, it works for AAD users, and if there were plans to extend it to B2C scenarios. So it's available for AAD users. It's also available for your personal accounts. So you can sign up with your Outlook.com or Gmail.com, and it will continue to work. Some of the capabilities like sharing and such you won't see over there because those just operate within the tenant boundaries. For B2C scenarios, we don't really have anything on our roadmap. It's a very interesting proposition. We'd love to talk to you about what exactly you are thinking after the session. Hi.
Can you hear me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do with workflows is, with approval workflows, is when we assign certain steps, it's dependent on previous steps or fields within the list that it's associated with.
Yeah.
So does Flow allow for dynamic assignment of steps along the process, or is that something that we'd have to export and code into it?
So do you mean, so everybody heard the question, right? So do you mean if there are certain values that are assigned in a previous step, accordingly dynamically?
Right. So if the previous person inserted A into field 1, then it assigns it to user B. But if they put 2, then it assigns it to user C.
Yeah. You can absolutely do that with Flow. In fact, like with the conditions loops, we also have a case statement that you can assign in there. So you can monitor the new item or the new document, what the properties are associated with it, and accordingly, based on the specific list item, you can monitor a specific value in the list item. Based on the value, if it's A, then go to user B for approval. If the value is 2, then put it in an Excel sheet with the value 3. You can absolutely do all of those things in Flow.
And instead of assigning it to a specific user, can you assign it to a role?
A role, like a security account?
And yeah, like a group or something.
So so that's an interesting one. You can work around a little bit. Like you can create an account and use it as a user. Security accounts, we'd love to hear more. Like that's not exactly on our plan right now, because again, with our philosophy, it's like Flow operates as a user with user credentials. So that becomes a little on the edge, from that philosophy. So you could work around it, but it's not a mainline scenario.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So my question is, what happens when somebody leaves the company and he created the workflows, like the Flow?
Yes. So this is where our collaboration on Flow really comes in, right? So if you and I are at the same company and I have a Flow, I can share it with you, and if I leave the company, you have full edit operations on it, so you can see what are the connections that are still working, what are not working, and modify it accordingly. Now the admin, our company's admin on the other hand, can see exactly what flows have stopped working in the admin center, and whether it was because of somebody leaving the company. And they can manage it, they can shut it down, or they can add themselves as co-author, or can add you as a co-author on that flow so that it continues to function.
That's good.
Yeah, sure.
Hi. Is it possible? Hello? Hello? Is
I
it
can hear
possible to use Flow to change or add a user to a security group? So I want to go through the approval process and add them to a given group within the domain.
I don't think we have that capability.
Connector. So you can use the Azure Active Directory connector to do, add users to a directory, add users to groups. You can update managers. You can do all types of things. You do have to be the tenant administrator, though, to have permissions to use those operations, because any random user couldn't just go and modify the directory necessarily.
OK, thanks.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
So my question is around the integrations that you have with other services. So our company uses Workday. We're actually in the process of moving over to Workday for our HR management. And I can see a lot of potential for Workday to have some workflows that are coming through there. So when somebody gets hired, it creates an IT ticket so that we order a laptop and so forth and so on. Who would we go to look into integrating with Workday's API? Would that be Microsoft or Workday?
So I know that, and I'm going to defer to Stephen here. I know we have been working with Workday. That's in process.
Yeah, so we had, ultimately the goal is that individual partners will go and build connectors because Flow is awesome and they want to integrate with us. So we often reach out, so Workday is a company we've reached out to about having them build a connector into our ecosystem. The other thing you could do is if there's a small set of APIs you just want to connect to yourself, you could build a custom connector rather than wait for us to go and get an official Workday connector published. But if you want to accelerate the process, by all means, feel free to tell Workday about the awesome scenarios you want to do with Flow, and that will help.
Thank you.
Yeah, we wouldn't mind that. Hi.
So I got a question about support. So if somebody built a workflow, for some reason it wasn't working, I wasn't advanced enough as an administrator to figure it out.
Yes.
How do I get support? Do I have to have one of the paid plans you were mentioning? We've got an E5 plan, by the way,
Yes.
in our company. So what does that look like to get advanced support?
So we have a pretty good support team, actually. So you should be able to, with your E5 plan, you should be able to call them, unless I'm wrong, right? You should be able to call them, and they should be able to help you out.
Just opening a ticket like we normally would through
Yes.
Premier Support? Okay, that was
Yes, on Flow, if you go to the Learn, there is a support right in there, so you should be able to do it. And honestly, you can talk to us right
I just wanted
after.
to make
Yeah.
sure. My boss wants to know a little more.
Sure, sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Hi.
Hello?
Yeah, just keep talking.
It's on? Okay. I have two questions.
Okay.
Does the SharePoint, when you connect into SharePoint, does it matter if you're using the modern or the classic view? All of our SharePoint sites are all classic. They're not the modern view. Is there any impact in that? So can we still do all the flows associated with SharePoint if we're using classic?
Yeah, so you definitely can. The SharePoint connector, it works kind of on the data no matter how it's presented. Yeah, including on-premises, actually. The one caveat is, I don't know if we actually got to that here, but inside of SharePoint, there's like a Flow button that's a quick way to get started with Flow. That only surfaces in the modern views, but in terms of actually running in the back end, it doesn't matter what type of list it is.
Excellent. The second question I have, I don't think that's on anymore. The second question I have is, we're trying, oh, it is? Hello? Oh, there. The second question I had is, we've been trying to create a push notification from a Power App that is linked to a SharePoint list. The Power App works, but we can't get the push notification to work on our company mobiles, which uses Intune. Is there any security setting or anything like that that we may not be aware of?
Yeah.
I'll take that off.
Yeah, just take that offline.
We're right here. You can, like, chase Pratap right there, right now. Yeah. Who would like to go next? Okay, cool.
Hi. One question, I saw you had connectors for Outlook.com, for Azure Active Directory. What with the on-prem side of the world? I know there's that on-premise data connector for file access and stuff like that. But for example, Exchange.
Yeah.
If I didn't use Outlook.com and not Exchange Online, but used like an on-prem Exchange, is there some integration possible or is it not?
So you can set up gateways to talk to, like if you have a SQL server, for example, that you'd want to connect to, you have the ability to set up gateways to talk to your on-premise data. We do allow for that.
Sure. As I said, I know that works for SQL, for files, but...
yeah. Oh, for Exchange, specifically for Exchange?
It's an example because it's a very hugely on-premise environment Microsoft product, and I would like to automate that, like, okay, do a calendar entry when people approve to meeting or something like that.
So at the moment, we don't have a on-premises Exchange connector. However, you could build a custom connector that just operates over a few Exchange APIs if you wanted. A full Exchange on-premise connector is something we do plan on building as well, though.
Thanks.
Hi. I tried to build a small application with forms and Flow. So to have an anonymous survey for customers, and it worked quite well, but the point where it stuck was that the email from the system comes from a Power Apps and Flow Office 365 address, so not really a customer address. Is it possible to get that switched?
Yeah, you absolutely could. It depends on what connector you use. So if you connect to the Office 365 email with your credentials, the email will come from your account. If you use our SendGrid, then it's coming from like the Power Apps and Flow account. If you send like the notification email, it's coming from our account. But you have the ability to plug in whatever account you use, just using the Office 365 email connector.
And for example, you could also set up a shared mailbox, and you can send it from the shared mailbox And then it wouldn't necessarily be you personally, but it could be, company name at companydomain.com.
Yep.
Okay. Would be great to learn more about that, because I simply used the template for that, and that didn't work. So.
Yep. Okay. We can talk to you about it offline.
I think there's a question all the way on the left. I don't know if we saw you. There you go. It's on.
Hello. What about scheduling of flows? Is that possible? I saw the word scheduling on the slides, but I didn't catch that.
Yeah, you can absolutely schedule a flow. You can set it like on an hourly basis, daily basis, weekly, monthly. You have different options. The trigger that you use is the recurrence trigger. Okay. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Let's keep talking.
So, yeah, I look at Flow as being kind of the next generation for end users of kind of the macro concept, right? Anything that you could do manually, you can automate. And though I don't think it has a lot of the inherent security vulnerabilities that those older platforms have, one concern that I have is this notion of individuals authoring these things, and maybe it works maybe their understanding of the process is not sufficient to ensure that it works correctly. We're talking about sharing data between applications, and what if they forget to fill out an important field that is needed for the next step or whatever, or just the fact that individuals who create competing flows may create them a little bit differently and they don't work quite right. So kind of in line with this idea of what happens when people leave the organization and potentially abandon their workflows that they've created. Is there a concept of like an approval process for publishing flows, or a review process where I could as a user say, this is a flow I'd like to build, and have somebody with knowledge of the process review it and say, yeah, that works, and you can go ahead and put it in place. We right now use ServiceNow for a lot of process automation, and all of that is centralized through the ServiceNow development team. So if you want some payroll process to be automated, you go to them, they write it, they test it, they make sure that it works. So is Flow looking at any kind of hierarchical approval for the flows that are created?
So definitely not yet. That's the ServiceNow example that you used is exactly the problem that we're trying to solve, right?
I agree.
Because you shouldn't have to go to an IT department to be able to set up some small, simple processes that you can do for yourself. And that is where we make it super easy with no code for users to be able to set up such processes for themselves. So we don't have it on our agenda. I don't think this has come up in our user ideas either.
So I think the caveat to that is if you do have corporate data that you want to restrict access to, you can use DLP policies and create a certain environment that you don't open up to the entire organization. But if you have a ServiceNow account, you could only set up that ServiceNow account if we had a ServiceNow connector in a certain environment, only give certain people access to that environment, and then those people could automate on that. But then for the other people who just want to be able to do a notification on a SharePoint list, they can continue to do that as well in the more open environment. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And one second part to the question. I know that the problem with kind of centralizing automation through all this is that oftentimes the endpoints of that automation aren't really aware of how they're being automated, so it can create some confusion when things don't work. It's like the automated home example where your garage door opens at midnight for no reason, but you dig into your workflow and figure out that you use some keyword somewhere, and that's an unintended consequence. Is there any kind of like global auditing or logging that makes that process a little easier to troubleshoot?
So I wish I had mentioned that in our roadmap slide, actually. So an admin is going to have audit logs in the Office 365 Center where they can go and review what is going on. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Hi, sorry, you've been waiting a while.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, if a flow is deleted, so that flow can be retrieved back? If a flow is deleted by an end user?
Oh, for the ones that are deleted, and if you want to get them back.
Yeah.
So we have a 45-day hard delete policy or something like that. So you can call our support to get it back if you'd like.
Okay. Can I set a retention policy for the flow?
You yourself?
Even if it is deleted?
Not today. You can't set it today. If that's something of interest, like definitely please let us know in the ideas forum and such.
And second question I have, if a flow is created by an end user, can I have a co-owner as an admin user in that?
Yes, absolutely. An admin can go and add themselves as a co-author.
Can it be added automatically whenever an end user creates a flow? Can the co-owner as an admin can be added automatically?
No, not today. I wonder if you can set up a flow to do that. But no, not today. We can't do that.
Although the admins do have full visibility, and if they go to the admin center itself, they can just see all of the flows in the organization.
Because, there'll be like many flows that will be created in a day or two.
Yeah.
So the admin can go and check into the flow and add his name.
If he wants, that's right. Yeah.
So if that can be automated, that will be helpful.
That's great feedback. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm going to go there. Hi.
First of all, thank you for a great session.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
There you go.
Thanks for a great session.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little about DLP policies in flows?
What would you like to know about the DLP policies?
Yeah.
We have 2 separate groups of that you can assign the connectors in. Like these are your business applications versus these are like your non-business applications. And you can ensure that for, just to use an example, if data from your SharePoint should never go to Dropbox, for example, you can set up a policy such that a flow can never transfer that data from SharePoint to Dropbox.
We also do have a session dedicated to admin
Yes.
this afternoon. I think it's at 2:15, so definitely check that out if
You
you're
can bring that
interested.
up on the screen,
Yeah.
actually.
Thank you.
Maybe this question here?
Yeah.
So I attended the Flow session you had yesterday at the Microsoft booth, and they talked about how Power Apps were used to create the forms, and then you can connect that with Flow.
Yes.
But I was thinking, is Forms, Microsoft Forms, ever going to be able to connect with Flow? Because it seems like Power Apps are a little too difficult for the normal information worker to
Yes.
create a form.
Yes.
But Forms is really, really simple, and I could see, information workers creating a lot of forms and then connecting it to Flow, which would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good call. Like especially for the teacher scenario that I was telling you about,
Exactly.
That's somewhere where they have expressed a lot of interest. We're talking to the Forms team about some native integrations and such.
Yeah, so we already
have-
do have a connector today.
Yeah. Is there?
Yeah, so you can, when somebody submits a form entry, you can go and run a flow. We aren't embedded in the Forms UI like we are with SharePoint.
Okay.
That's something we're talking to them about, but
Okay, cool.
yeah.
All right, so I'll look for
Yeah, like notifications when forms are complete or specific actions that you want to do. You can see like how many people filled up the forms, like what percentage and such. You can do all of that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi.
But I know in the past there was no support yet, like for complex field types like people fields, writing to it, and stuff like that. Has that been added, or is that something on the roadmap?
Yeah, we're continuously improving the, we're built on the Logic Apps infrastructure. So anything the Logic Apps team, we also get that for free. And our team is also continuously working on how it can be super easy to specify things in the Visual Designer. What I showed you in the demo, we have like a people picker that queries across the organization, much like your email, in terms of populating the fields. We also have a lot of complex expressions that you can type in a flow. That is the session at 12:30, where you'll be able to see some of the complex expressions that you can put in and manipulate the flow that way.
Okay, and then because I meant to mention, like in SharePoint though, like specific to SharePoint lists, are you able to access those? Because that was something we tried a while ago, and like you couldn't write to people fields.
Yes, you can do that today as long as it's a single input people field. So if it's the many people at once, we're still working on adding that. But for the single input field, you can do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Oh, one last question?
Hi. My question is related to, is there, instead of expressions, is there an easy way for end users to do and condition, like you're part of United States and California, or United States and Texas?
I really want you to come to the 12:30 session by Stephen.
Yeah, so the expressions do handle that, but we are also working on a richer user experience, so that way you can just be like in like Visual Studio, or you know how you have those condition builders. So something more similar to that is what we're planning on building.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great.
Do you have a question? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks all for coming.